Hello, everybody, and welcome to tonight's episode of Ramblemancy. Don't worry, John. That was well before, after you finished. It's fine. Hi,
All right,
everyone.
excellent.
Nobody heard the vicious profanities that John was just spewing.
Yeah, everyone knows that. I'm viciously profane,
Yeah.
especially when I'm on family-friendly streams. Just kidding. That's another streamer who we know who shall not be named.
Well, welcome everybody. We're gonna be talking to you tonight about Star Wars because we've been threatening to do this for a long time, and now there's actually like good reason to do it because there's been a whole lot of like cool Star Wars stuff since the last time we did a Star Wars Ramblemancy. So that's what we're talking about tonight. We're talking about Star Wars. And I'm very excited because I have lots of opinions and thoughts about Star Wars, both new, semi-new, and old. And we'll be talking about those. But as a heads up, as many of you may have already noticed, my camera is right back to doing what it was doing before, which is screen tearing for some reason. So I genuinely don't know what that's about. I don't know how to fix it. So we're just going to have to deal with it. It seems to not be causing any other problems, so...
It's just that Lucas is a little bit in the Matrix right now, and we're all going to have to just deal with that.
Yeah. Lucas is, you see, Lucas is streaming from a galaxy far, far away.
It's true. The connection's hard to, like, it's hard to maintain that connection, so the camera doesn't...
Yep. We're actually, frankly, quite proud of the fact that we have as good of quality as we do, and that we only have to work with some slight screen tearing.
Or whatever the hell that was.
There's the galaxy far, far away problems, and then there's the your office is fucking haunted problems, and I can't help you.
That's true. That's true. It's, even in the galaxy far, far away, my office is haunted. So I just noticed that I forgot to fill my water before stream, like I always do. So, John, what do you got for us while I go do it?
All right,
I push you under the bus and then I run away.
I'm gonna stall while Lucas runs away. Anyway, hello everyone. It's good to see all of you here tonight. Littlest Drummer, Rainy. Hi, I was just playing a game on stream actually earlier with Rainy. So hello again. It's good to see you. Edge of it. Hi. Freeman, I see you in chat. Steve, hello. Happy to be able to happy to have you here, Hermes. And newly human Ramble. And then I see Littlest Drummer is here to make good on her earlier threat of being puntastic here tonight. So I can't wait for what you come up with. Yes, welcome, Freeman. Hello there. Last name, Jonathan, General Kenobi, Boyle, and Jenk. Now this is pod racing, Hankins.
Love it. It's good.
Also, Nico, Geekouts and Nico both just stopping in, like sliding into chat just as Lucas is sliding back in with his water. Y'all, I made a killer lasagna today, and I'm so ready to ramble some Star Wars.
Hell yeah.
Ooh.
I haven't actually gone anywhere. I was just saying hello to literally everybody in chat while you were getting water. So.
Yeah, I know. I have my headphones on.
Okay, cool. Oh, we all have wireless headphones
now.
We've come so far from humble beginnings.
Unfortunately, it's not a wireless mic, or I could continue to participate in Ramblemancy while also around, like, getting water.
Oh my god, I theoretically could do that. Like, I do have, like, Freeman and I actually have the same headset. We could both just plug in mics and walk away.
Freeman, are you looking for Discord?
Yeah, I think I've got plenty.
Discord?
No, definitely not that one. I don't think it's that one either.
Oh, but this one's so long and majestic! Like my hair used to be when I was 7 years old.
Damn.
I was just looking for the... It's not important. I'm going to stop this bit.
Edgerfit is permanently banned from chat, actually. So
we're already coming for the Gray Jedi Lucas meme. Anyway, tonight's Ramblemancy is honestly just brought to you by the Star Wars brain rot that we all have, which in no way is connected to the fact that a new season of The Mandalorian is currently airing, and
not at all.
A trailer for Ahsoka today.
Like, the Star Wars celebration is this weekend, and I genuinely didn't know that until like this morning. So
and I didn't know about it until you knew about it.
Yeah,
On Sunday, we were planning this episode, and we're like, "Well," I was like, "We could wait for May the 4th, but I feel like we should just strike while the iron is hot because it's on our minds, and we
I
clearly
think what
have a
this
lot of
means is
things to
that the
say about
Force was with us. Uh,
it."
so
I think
Yeah,
I think you're
absolutely.
right.
yeah,
I think that's what it has to mean.
I agree. I agree. Um, but yeah, uh, so I'm glad that when I threw you under the bus, you just greeted people because I actually do have like something to start with. Um,
Oh yeah.
yeah, which is, I mean, Edge of It sort of beat me to it a little bit, but like the fucking Ahsoka trailer. Listen, if you haven't seen it yet, go watch it. If you are in any way a Star Wars Rebels fan, this show is just live action Star Wars Rebels, and I'm so here for it. Like,
I gotta go watch, like, see it, because Star Wars Rebels is I think one of the ones that I have seen like none of.
mm-hmm,
I've seen like a good chunk of the Clone Wars. I've seen a lot of Star Wars stuff. I think Rebels is like the only one that I
mm-hmm,
haven't seen any of.
yeah, no, I love Rebels. I didn't like it right away when I first started watching it. It felt very like Clone Wars was ambiguous about who it was for, right?
Mm.
Like you can make the argument Star Wars has always been for children, and Clone Wars was for children in the same way that the movies were, but the show Rebels was a little more explicitly kid like, but only at first, because then they did sort of like shift, and I also have to say, in defense of the show, even the early parts of the show, I did watch the very beginning, the very first episode of Rebels just recently, for the first time since the very first time I watched it, which was like when the season was airing for the first time. And I gotta say, it's a lot better than I remember it being. It's a lot less. Yeah, I think at the time I was just sort of like automatically kind of prejudiced against it.
Mm.
Um, because I'd heard that it was sort of skewed younger in its audience, and so I just assumed.
Hmm.
But it actually holds up pretty well. But yeah, it's it's I ultimately I love that show, especially like seasons 2, 3, and 4, like so good. But yeah. Anyway, this show Ahsoka is going to it promises to be just live action Star Wars Rebels, and I'm honestly here for it.
Yeah, I I
Cool.
I was I'm not familiar with a bunch of the characters in that one besides Ahsoka, but like I was interested to see like bits and pieces of other like threads I have seen in other pieces of like
Mm.
recent Star Wars media,
Mm-hmm.
like seeing Mon Mothma in there. I like, do we know where this series falls
I think it
in the
falls
timeline?
pretty well in the um, same vicinity as the Mandalorian, I believe.
Okay,
Okay. Cool.
and then
It's in a post Return of the Jedi period, um,
okay.
because that's when the epilogue for Star Wars Rebels takes place right after the like celebrations are taking place at the fall of the Empire. So
Okay,
Hmm.
cool, cool.
yeah.
That's cool. I was gonna ask the same question because yeah, there's a lot of different timelines, so
Mm-hmm.
I'm never
Yeah.
sure.
So I'm
And I
certain that
also haven't
this.
seen the Rebels.
Yeah, yeah. So like I'm certain
I
that
watched.
this
Yeah, sorry.
one is roughly concurrent with at least some
Mm.
of the Mandalorian.
Okay,
Cool.
cool, cool.
So yeah. Actually,
Interesting.
I know it is because in spoilers for the Mandalorian season 2, but Ahsoka in the episode where she first makes an appearance is explicitly looking for Thrawn. Um,
That's right, which is
yeah,
who they're looking for in the
and I
trailer.
believe she's looking for Thrawn because in Star Wars Rebels, the last again spoilers for the end of Star Wars Rebels, but the last time Ezra was seen, he disappeared along with Thrawn. So not only is Thrawn seemingly a new threat, but also like they're trying to find Ezra. So
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
and Thrawn is the only one
Ooh.
who might know where Ezra is.
Ooh, Matt
It,
posted like the new timeline too down there.
mm-hmm.
The High
That's awesome.
The High Republic, Fall of the Jedi, then Reign of the Empire, then Age of Rebellion, then the New Republic, and then Rise of the First Order.
Mm-hmm.
AKA
Oh.
Reign of
Okay.
or AKA Reign of the Empire 2 Electric Boogaloo.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah. No,
Wow.
I I was is it just a movie? I thought I read that Ray was getting a whole trilogy, another trilogy, but which I also heard that if that is happening, I believe Filoni is behind it, which we were talking about it right before Ramblemancy went live. Like they I'm fine with that. Like I was not a fan of the character of Ray. Just I wanted to like Ray, but I didn't like the way that the movies treated her. But I believe in Dave Filoni.
Mhm.
If Dave Filoni's work on other Star Wars properties is anything to go by, then like hopefully we get a solid few Ray movies if he's
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
in the director's seat.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah.
All three are in different eras. That's interesting.
Ooh.
Like,
Dave Filoni is doing a Mando
Hmm.
movie set before the fall of Mandalore, I think, or something. That's cool. I
Hmm.
that's
love that.
man, we are so rich in Star Wars content, which like we were talking about
Yeah.
this beforehand. There's a lot of like cinematic universes out there, but I think I'm not as invested in any of them as I am in Star Wars, and none
Yeah.
of them are nearly as interesting to me personally as Star Wars. And that's not a value judgment on any of those universes. I know that
No,
there are
not
a
at
lot
all.
of comic fans who are very invested in like the DC and the DCU and the MCU. Um, and like I'm very happy for them, but I'm really, really glad to see as much Star Wars content as there is because it just makes me happy.
I know
Yeah.
this is a Star Wars themed Ramblemancy, but I would like to say that besides the Star Wars universe, I'm also very excited for Lord of the Rings. I have to say,
Hmm.
personally, interested to see what happens with any of that.
Yeah. I I have heard that Lord of like somebody like an exec somewhere said that they want to give Lord of the Rings the Marvel treatment or the Star Wars treatment or something like that. The Star Wars treatment.
Oh, really?
And I depending on what they
Huh.
mean by that, like I
Interesting.
don't want that. Like I think what is it? Ryan Green did a great video on breaking that down and talking about why that would be a terrible idea. Um, and like I don't like I think that there is a way to do it. I realize we're not talking about Star Wars anymore, but like we will. I have many things to say about Star
Man.
Wars, but uh, the only way I think that something like that would work is if I don't want to see like origin stories for the Fellowship characters. Like I don't care about that, and I really don't want to see it, and I don't think we need it. What I want to see, what I would like to see, and be very interested in seeing is like other people and like during the, like if we had a whole like a series or even a movie following some like Gondorian Rangers during the War of the Ring, I'd be very down with that. I think that would be very cool. Um, or you know, like elves doing elf shit somewhere else during the War of the Ring or
Fair.
whatever. I'm not terribly interested in seeing you know the like
Or,
like
or
Legolas went like 50
hmm.
years before or
Sure.
300 years before. I
Yeah.
don't want to see it. I don't want to see it.
No, yeah. I guess a part of me wants to see more like like personal like relations with like orcs, I suppose, and I
That
know
would be
that's not going to
fascinating.
happen. But that's kind of what I want. I want to see a more. I also want to see a different side, a different side of the orcs, or a different perspective of orcs, like maybe before, you know. But that's
You
just
know exactly if they did that, you know exactly the kind of commentary that you would hear, the pushback from the grognardy Lord of the
yeah.
Rings
Oh,
like
absolutely.
purists going like oh no, orcs are evil and they're bad and they shouldn't be making rah rah rah. We're not blah, 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 blah. That's what I got.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well,
You just know, you know.
they'd be doing a Job of the Hut all over the place. I know. So bringing us back to Star
Exactly.
Wars.
Yes, thank you, Freeman.
I think it is, and like rolling back into Star Wars. I think like giving it the Star Wars treatment is a nice like soundbite, but I don't think you can give Lord of the Rings the Star Wars treatment. I said before stream, space is really big. And there's a lot of room to live in, and I feel like in the Star Wars universe. Um, and I think a little bit because Tolkien's work is the product of the time in which it was written in a lot of ways. There's and the kind of fantasy work it is, I think it's I think it's hard to like do the same thing where you kind of like branch out into all of these other like little stories that wrap into the same kind of idea or universe.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's hard to do that with like a big heroic a setting that is like built to be like a critique of the war machine and is a heroic fantasy story.
Yeah.
I think it's harder to fit like these little sequential like kind of chapters of story into that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I think it's less, Nico, the fact that Tolkien did not leave a lot of time and space open for interpretation. The entire history of the world is pretty much already written. I think that's true to an extent, but I think for me the biggest issue with that comes from the fact that, and this is kind of Ryan Green's argument, and I tend to agree, that like those characters in like the Lord of the Rings books were written to serve the purpose that they served in the books. They already had their arc in those books. And like Legolas and Gimli didn't have an arc, but like they don't need one. And I don't think it needs to be like, I don't want to see like Solo but for Gimli. I don't want to see that because it's just not necessary. Like those characters, they were exactly what they needed to be for the exact amount of time they needed to be, and that's it. Like I don't think that they need to be like Star Wars is a different thing. Like it's entirely different thing because it was not originally a book. Like it was not originally like it came to be in an entirely different medium, and I think Star Wars can have what we're seeing now as the Star Wars treatment, but like that's because it was already built into, like as John said, a big universe. Space is big. There's so much cool stuff in there, and Star Wars has a long history and tradition of being expanded upon by all kinds of authors and studios and things like that. Like there's a long history of that, and it is ripe for that.
Yeah, Star Wars more than anything to me feels like a place, like a setting. Star Wars feels like a big framework for certain kinds of stories, and Lord of the Rings is well, the framework for Lord of the Rings is much more condensed and focused. Um, Space is very big in this, and also like the Star Wars as a property does this thing where they just name drop a bunch of cool shit and then they don't tell you anything about any of it. And so like you know it's a fantastic piece of world building. It's a fantastic method of world building, one that I really like, where like characters just talk to each other like people in character and reference things that are real for them, and we the watcher or the reader are just left to it. And it also just it's fun world building opportunities for later down the line.
Yeah. Yeah, like Matt says, the Clone Wars was mentioned in the first movie in '77 or whatever, and we just nodded and went, "Wow, yes, exactly." Ooh, Clone Wars. That sounds cool. It's cool and compelling. I do this in my D&D games all the time. Like, I'll just like throw some random tidbit of lore or whatever and not explain it, and then people are like, "Oh, that sounds awesome," and like,
yeah,
and it just makes the world seem big and cool and interesting and like, yeah.
Tolkien was very much the writer who did that. And then he went and wrote a book about it, and then he came back and went back to writing the book.
Star Wars tells you a joke and then lets it sort of sit and breathe and take as much time as it needs. Tolkien tells you a joke, then explains the joke to you, and then explains why that's funny and all the countless generations of humor through the ages and what led to this.
You get the etymology. You get the explanation of the joke, and then you get the etymology. Of
yes,
the
there it is. The etymology.
Oh my god.
My Star Wars knowledge is almost exclusively Mandalorian, specifically Grogu, because we're happy to vibe. Listen, that is the great thing about Star Wars is it is also an incredibly accessible property.
Yeah, unlike in fairness, I think they're making a mistake with The Mandalorian and some of the other like related shows. In like for example, making the Book of Boba Fett The Mandalorian season 2.5, because there are like I think it's fine. I like the idea of there being crossover between the shows. I don't think that they should be continuing each other's shows or each other's stories in each other's shows, like, you know, what Marvel has been doing, and makes it just fucking inaccessible to anybody who wants to just jump in and watch the one thing. Because thus far, Star Wars, like, is the kind of thing that you can be interested in whatever part of it you're interested in and not have to worry about any of the rest of it. But you can go watch the rest of it if you want to. And I think it should stay that way, to be honest with you. Because, like, yeah.
I don't personally want to... This is just me. I don't necessarily want to go to Google and search which order of something I need to watch in order for it to mesh, kind of like what they did with
The
Green
Arrowverse.
Arrow and the Arrowverse. I only did that because you already knew. And so I had your help.
Yeah. And I don't even think I got it right, because like I was watching with a viewing guide recently, the Arrowverse, and I was like, oh damn, I got a lot of this wrong.
Oh really?
Like, some of the stuff came out not in chronological order in world. So like the way that it was, the way that you and I watched it was in the order of air date.
Gotcha.
But like some of them, like it's better to watch some of them yeah.
Okay. Well, went over my head. Yeah. I enjoyed it nonetheless.
Exactly.
It works.
So, but yeah. Hey, Chance. Good to see you.
Hey, Chance.
Welcome in. We're just talking Star Wars.
Yeah.
Matt, I'm going to call you out a little bit here, because I may not be able to ban the word filler from from conversation on the internet, but I can sure do it here. No, Matt, you know I'm teasing you, but I liked Book of Boba Fett as well. I thought it was very good. I don't know if I would call it filler, mainly because, and my argument for that is because it wasn't trying to be anything than its own story. Like, it was like, can it really be filler if it wasn't reaching an overarching goal? Reaching for an overarching goal or story. I don't know if it can be called that. So, by technical definition alone. But, like, I mean, feel free to disagree with me. I'm just, that's kind of my thoughts on it as to, like, why I wouldn't call it that. But, yeah.
Oh, you mean like it was? It felt like
a
pause between seasons of The Mandalorian. They're like, oh, there's going to be too much time between The Mandalorian. We'll just sneak the Book of Boba Fett in here.
I understand. Sure, I think that's probably true. That's fair. I don't know if you were meaning it as a criticism. I don't know if you meant it that way, but I actually don't mind there being just like random nonsense stories in Star Wars, because as we were saying, space is big. There's a lot of space to fill things in with, you know. But
yeah, and like Nick,
sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, like, again, I want more anthologies and all these big IPs to let different people tell small, unconnected stories that take place within the same universe.
Absolutely. And I really do think, like Amethyst said, you know, like, I think people should be free to, like, with Star Wars. I think nothing that we have thus far as sort of in our big media, I think, really lends itself, as well as Star Wars, to be something that is just whatever people want to interact and engage with, and doesn't have to be anything else. Like, my thing with Marvel, yes, I am caught up on a lot of Marvel stuff, but I really don't want to have to be in order to understand. I feel like I have to be in order to understand everything and like at some point I'm just gonna lose my steam for Marvel, and I'm just gonna like be like, okay, well, I guess I'm not watching anymore.
I have the benefit that I'm friends with Bree, who has like this frenmity with the MCU property, where like she
I could see that.
She cannot stop herself from watching it just to see how fucking wild it gets, but it drives her up the wall. So I stay informed by accident.
Yeah, I totally understand what you mean by that. That's how I got through Lost. It was definitely like, I hate this so much, but I
can't stop watching.
Yeah. And I waited for it to all come out, and I didn't even. Anyway, same thing really.
Yeah. Like, and And like Hermie said, you could make entire movies about living inside Empire-controlled worlds, following groups of like troopers or TIE pilots and stuff. Yeah, like that is kind of the thing about the Star Wars timeline as it exists, and the Star Wars property. Just like it's so big that there's a lot of room in there to tell interesting stories. Which like,
yeah, and I was just gonna say no, I agree with you, and I just hope that the thing with like the Book of Boba Fett doesn't become like precedent. You know what I mean? Like doesn't set a precedent. And it seems like thus far it hasn't, because like since then we've had Obi-Wan Kenobi, we've had Andor, and like those certainly tie into and are informed by the rest of Star Wars, but the others are certainly not required viewing for those things.
Yeah.
Well, with Obi-Wan Kenobi it kind of is, but it also stands alone pretty well.
Yeah, if you watch Obi-Wan Kenobi, not having watched the original trilogy or at least the prequel movies, like it doesn't hit quite as much emotionally for you. You're like, oh man, here's this Jedi who's got some trauma, man. This guy's a little fucked up.
Why is he so traumatized?
Why is he so sad, Mom?
Why is he not helping anybody?
Yeah, like I think that's kind of the only like recent release that really has required viewing.
Yeah, I think that I would agree with that. But yeah. Sorry, I keep getting distracted by my camera jumping all over the place. I wish there was something I could do about it. And I'm sure there is, but I can't, not while we're streaming.
That's so weird though.
Amethyst had an interesting comment, I think, which was Star Wars makes me think it's what OC fan fiction AUs want to be. Like, your Naruto AU or your like My Little Pony AU, as in like the world the story will take place and that's it, and then you can go with any other knowledge. So like you're like, oh, I love Naruto, but I would like to imagine it in the modern day. That kind of fan fiction. And I do you kind of can do that. That's kind of like what Star Wars there's a I think there's a valid comparison there where like you can have cool like kind of samurai western inspired stories like The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett, and then also you can have Andor, which is like this airtight anti-corporate anti-fascist piece of media, like a story about the people inside this horrific like war machine that is the Empire, and like how the rebellion comes to be born, and those are in the same universe.
Yep, absolutely. No, I'm really. That's I think the thing that I like so much about Star Wars is that it's free to be any number of things, and I think Star Wars is coming into its own now because it like the industry has changed, because prior to this point, like prior to like the era that we're living in now, television was thought of as a lesser medium, to the point where like people would be called TV actors and that was like a put down, but now you see like A-listers in TV shows constantly. And so like the industry has changed, and I think because of that means that Star Wars is free to become the thing that that was kind of like always destined to be, that like it is now free to kind of like blossom into something cool. Because I think as someone who grew up on the Star Wars films and who loves them dearly, I think Star Wars was being hobbled by the fact that it was staying like the big screen releases, like there's only so much interesting stuff that you can pack into a 2.5-hour movie.
Yeah, like I Andor's a really good piece of media, and I did like Rogue One, but trying to go from Andor to Rogue One and not Rogue One to Andor was jarring, because I was like, oh wow, everything is so like it's like the pace of the movie is just like dizzying.
Yeah.
So fast, and there's hardly any room for anything to like breathe. And I'm like, oh man, I got so used to Star Wars in a serial.
Oh, did we lose John?
This is a first.
This is a first, or maybe at least like a second. So this is great. My camera's glitching out all over the place. John froze and his internet died, and We're doing great, guys.
So
Everything's
you're from a galaxy far, far away, but John's from a galaxy far, farther away. I get it now. This
there's an
is
extra
good.
far in there somewhere. Now it's far. John's
Yes,
from a galaxy far, far, far away.
far away. Well, I need to watch Andor. I've said that to you, Lucas,
Yeah,
before. I need to get past the second episode, as we talked about. That's like kind of a hump for some folks, including
absolutely.
me.
Yeah.
But I'm given to understand from from people I've watched on the internet who's like, and from your account of it, I'm given to understand that it's well worth the watch. So
It is.
I'm
It
going to
is.
watch it, and everyone else should who hasn't.
John just messaged says his internet
Oh.
is gone. So, uh,
Yeah, he said BRB.
hopefully, I hope so. Otherwise, I'll have to like put us on BRB and mess with the like crop.
True.
But or else
Very
we're gonna
true.
have nameplates in the middle of our faces. Um, yeah.
Yeah. This is
You know, Edgefit, I think that's a really good point. Edgefit said a lot of these dense properties should be TV shows. I prefer the original Lord of the Rings as a TV show, or like stop making Dune movies and just accept that you need 9 hours to show a 400-page book. Yeah, that's a great point.
yeah.
My favorite adaptation of any book that I've read that I've like to date, I like his Dark Materials trilogy by Philip Pullman. I love those books, and we don't need to talk about the movie. We all know it was bad. But the BBC adaptation of it as a series with one season per book was great. Like it was excellent, and I agree with Edge of It. I think that's what needs to happen with these like dense properties. And I think Lord of the Rings, I would love. I know a lot of people. This is a controversial take. I think I would love to see a live action Lord of the Rings as a 3-season series. I would love to see it. I really would. Controversial
Yes,
take, but
yeah. Just given the right producers, I think so. We were just
Hi,
talking
John.
about the. Hello, John. Welcome
Hello.
back.
Hello, John.
Hello there.
Yeah.
Uh,
The thing we were just talking about, John, is what Edgefit said a little while ago, which is a lot of these dense properties should be TV shows. I'd prefer the original Lord of the Rings as a TV show, or like stop making Dune movies and just accept that you need 9 hours to show a 400-page book.
Yeah. Yeah. Like they made a Dune movie and I was like, oh cool, I'm glad they're making a Dune movie. I wish it was a series.
Yeah. Oh, Chans, that's a good example. Good
Yeah.
Omens. Yeah, that's a good example. I haven't watched it myself, but I've heard really from my like friends of mine who have both read it and
oh.
watched it. They like have agreed that it was a adapted property. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Nearly Human said, "Okay, I haven't watched Andor, and I believe everyone when they say how good it is, but a show not hooking you until the third episode seems like a problem." I think
Well, I
I
don't
say
know if
it
that's
didn't.
for everyone.
Yeah, it didn't hook me right away, but I know plenty of people who really enjoyed the first 2 episodes, because I could tell. I think my problem was that I was watching it weekly, so I watched the first 2 episodes, and then I was just like, okay, I guess, and then I gave it a shot. But I think now that it's all out, you can tell that episodes 1 and 2 are building to something. It's a little slower than I would like it to be, but it is well worth it. And I agree with you, Newly Human, that I hate it when people are like, "Oh, you should watch this show." "Oh, I didn't like it." "Oh, that's because you got to you got to make it to season 4. That's where it really picks up." I'm like, "No, I don't. No, I do not have to do that."
If I have to watch 4 seasons of this show, like 50 hours of this show for it to get good, I'm not doing it. With
Yeah.
Andor, I think like
Mm.
they released the first 3 episodes together, if I remember.
Did they really?
The idea. I think they did. I think they released 3, and then
Maybe
they went
I
to
just
3
didn't
after
know what the fuck I was talking about, and I just like didn't realize there was a third episode or something. I don't know.
that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think, if I remember correctly, they released the first 3 so that you could watch them all together, and then went weekly after that. And it was interesting. It was an interesting experiment the way I think
Huh.
they structured that show. With it kind of,
Okay.
it was like a few like 3 episodes like arcs. following that one kind of like bigger one.
Yeah.
Like the overarching thing is Cassian joins the rebellion and helps found it. But then like there's like these little kind of mini ones, and I think like those first 2 episodes essentially serve to set up all of the pieces that make the last couple of episodes just hit.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes
And I think,
sense.
and I do think, looking back on it again, I've only watched Andor the one time, but looking back on it, I think I sort of very sort of flippantly uh flippantly state that like there's the inciting incident and then nothing proceeds to happen for episodes 1 and 2, but I don't think that's actually true. It just feels like it when you know that there are more episodes coming but they're not out yet and you have to wait for them. That's what it feels like. But looking back on it, I can definitely see the value of those first 2 episodes because it serves to establish the character of Cassian. Like, yes, nothing happens as far as the plot moving forward, but it does serve to establish the character of Cassian, like who he is prior to the guy we meet in Rogue One. And I think that, yeah, that I think is important to be done. It's just not particularly what I want an entire episode to be taken up on when I have to wait several weeks for the rest for the payoff for it. You know what I mean?
Right.
But
right.
I think it would be different watching it just straight through.
Yeah, it is definitely a piece of media that is best consumed in like chunks of 3. You basically are it's a mini series, really, is what they reinvented the mini series. I feel like where you have
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Where you have like almost movie length like chunks of story, and you just get several of those.
Yeah. So Newly Human, I absolutely agree with your sentiment for sure. I hear you. I don't think it necessarily applies to Andor, but I also can't make that judgment for you. So like it's hard for me to say. That's not maybe you'll look at it and watch it and go, "Wow, this should have hooked me by now. I can't." And that's fair. That's completely fair and completely understandable. Um, I'm just trying to give you like my sort of explanation of why I think it works and why I didn't like it when I was watching it. So, but yeah. But no, I really do like the fact that television as a medium is evolving the way that it is, because I think some people might quibble with me, particularly film buffs will quibble with me on this, but I really do think it lends itself to more expansive storytelling. Not necessarily better storytelling, but expansive. And I know the counter argument is that like, well, if you need more time to tell a good story, then you're obviously not particularly skilled at it. And like, I guess, I don't know, like I know people have done it and they've done it successfully, but like that's I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. There's arguments like that always frustrate me. Like it just seems like people who have taken the lesson about using short stories and short form stories um, as a way to like cut your teeth as a creative. And just kind of extrapolated that into like the only thing of value is this particular like form, or the only thing of value is if you can do it really like in this like really tight air like short form. It's like no, some stories deserve more breathing room.
This is actually, I agree with you completely, 100%. But everything you just said is just like it's like vaguely triggering for me for my experience as an English undergrad.
Listen, I'm working out the same things here, where people are just like, yes, the only thing of value is, oh God, what is it in academia, or what was it when I was in college? I think, what was the pinnacle of writing? I think it was some kind of like realistic fiction or something like that. There's a name for it.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I have a whole book of short stories that are like that. a lot of them are really, really good, but like j- just because there are really, really good short stories does not mean that that is the apex of storytelling and writing in like just
Right. Just because they're excellent and classics doesn't mean you need to boo other forms of the
yeah.
art.
It's like I'm
It's
like my hot take, and I don't even think it's that hot of a take, but like the thing that I would fire back to somebody who came at me with that particular opinion is like if you need to put down other stories of other methods of storytelling in order to elevate your own, then is it really that good? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
ah
I remember back when I was looking at getting a master's. Like one of my mom's friends is a like childhood friends is a professor of English,
Hmm.
um, and I was talking to her about things that I was interested in studying, and she's like, "You're going to have." She was like, "I believe you can do it, and there are people who are interested in studying it, but you're going to have to work to find them first of all, and you're going to have to convince them that fantasy is anything more than meaningless drivel genre fiction." Because that's how academia views it.
Yep.
And they think that a little bit less about sci-fi, but they still just view it as like
They think it a little bit less about
meaningless
sci-fi
drivel.
because it's cynical and generally cynical and therefore smarter. Uh,
Yes, yes. Anything that is deeply cynical seems to be something that academia likes. Um, which
If it is a truly cutting insight into analysis of the human condition or modern society, then it is by definition smarter and therefore more worthy of your academic time.
yes,
Like,
Hermes is correct. People get so angry about sci-fi, so mad.
yeah,
You are correct.
and if they don't like it, they're like, no, that's not sci-fi. That's and then they start splitting hairs until they're right. And then,
Yeah.
exactly.
That is my
Oh
favorite.
God.
It's one of my favorite sports to watch play out on the internet is what is sci-fi? And I'm like, sci-fi is a lot of things, buddy.
yeah.
Like
Oh God,
I've
newly human. That
laughed.
hurts me for you. Laughs in the genre of horror. If it's critically appreciated, it must be
Hmm.
a psychological thriller.
Yeah.
No, it can't be horror because horror is schlocky and crude. If it's truly a masterful film, that makes it a psychological thriller. No, I hear that too, and I don't even exist in film circles like you do. So like that's
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah. No, it's a whole thing.
it's just
Also, Hermes, I appreciate that clip. That's not sci-fi. That's operatic fantasy
okay.
set in
In
space.
fairness, I have said that about Star Wars. Okay, but I'm
Hmm.
also right about Star Wars, and I'm not using it as a put down. I'm not saying it's worse because it is that. I'm saying just appreciate Star Wars on the merits that it has,
Yeah.
and like those merits are there are literally wizards who fight with swords. A princess gets saved. You can make an argument that the Death Star is a metaphorical dragon. Like they slay the dragon. Like it is. Anyway,
It is kind of like point for Star Wars is fascinating because it is like point for point a fantasy story, except it takes place in space with spaceships,
hmm
and like the horses are spaceships, and the dragon is a big flying space station,
yeah.
and the wizards use
and
laser
and I
swords.
will also grant that I am certain that somebody can make a cogent argument for Star Wars in fact being science fiction. Um, I am simply not smart enough to see it. So like,
Yeah. I think a
so
lot of times, like the line that people use to try and divide like fantasy and sci-fi is if I don't know. And see, the thing is, we've been talking this whole episode about how Star Wars is really big, and I think that there are some pieces of media in the Star Wars property that do trend
absolutely,
more on the science fiction side of
absolutely,
things.
Hmm.
yes,
Like, I think Andor is frankly a good example of that. Andor feels more like a science fiction or cyberpunk genre movie
That
than
was the
it
vibe I
does.
felt. Yeah.
Yeah, it
hmm
feels much more like that than it feels like
yes,
a fantasy romp, which is what pretty much all of the mainline like numbered movies feel like. Those are like fantasy romps in space. But you look at Andor,
Hmm.
and that very much is it feels almost cyberpunk to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, and that is one
So,
of the things I love about Star Wars is that it has the room to be whatever it needs to be in order to tell the story you want to tell. Like
Hmm.
mhm.
it yeah, on the one hand you can have Andor and you can do this like very like politically minded kind of, you know, discourse about how rebellions start and why they start and all these sorts of things. And then you can also have like space wizards with their laser swords going zoom zoom like
Hmm.
Yeah.
Which is also why it would makes for a good tabletop game too, I would imagine.
I agree. Yeah,
So,
an excellent tabletop setting for sure. Like, I listen. I'm very much on the record about this. I would love to play in or run a Star Wars game. I'd love to do it. Yeah.
mm-hmm,
Mhm.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Second.
Jedi Sith. Hermes says Jedi Sith are more space samurais and Ronin than space wizards to me, but I get the point. A big fantasy feels just probably why it works for so many people. Yeah, I think you're probably right. I think that's maybe more accurate to their portrayal.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, then Geekat says Andor is what hardcore fans have been saying in forums since the beginning. I want an adult, edgy Star Wars, and then the same people are now like, this is boring. Nothing happened. Just two people in a room talking. I'm like, my guy.
Man,
You can't.
I wish Star Wars was more like Blade Runner. No, not like that.
No, not like that. I think it was Eric
Hmm.
Campbell this week who said watching this week's episode of The Mandalorian, I thought I was watching Blade Runner for the first 30 minutes or something like that. And I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
a little bit.
Yeah, a little. Yeah. um. Yeah, Edgefit, I agree. Edgefit says, I guess some people with sticks up their arses who would say that sci-fi is an examination of the human psyche using future technology or aliens as a proxy or outer perspective of the human mind. Yep.
See, the thing
Yeah.
is, a junior year English student would write that paper and would think that they were very clever.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Um,
Hell, that would be a senior paper. Like
yeah,
somebody
yeah,
would make
I
like
could see that being somebody's capstone project.
yeah, and I would just be like, okay, I guess. Like,
I
yes, I
wrote.
suppose that is a thing that sci-fi can be. Um, a very narrow slice of it.
Mm-hmm. Uh, sorry, the reason that I was cackling so much is that Hermes said, "I just want a Star Wars movie that is only Wookiees and is all subtitles, just a bunch of screaming." And unfortunately, I have bad news for you, Hermes, because that movie exists.
Oh no.
You shouldn't watch it.
If you're talking
It's
about
not
this,
good.
are you talking about the Christmas special?
I am talking about
Yeah,
the Christmas
I
special.
can't. I couldn't.
I've seen,
You've seen the whole thing?
I've seen the whole
I
thing.
didn't make it
Lucas.
5 minutes. I didn't make it 5 minutes. I'm sorry. Like I watched 5 minutes and I was like, I cannot. This is too much. This is too much.
All right.
You're even gonna see coked up Mark Hamill.
All right. So, give me a name. Give me a name. I love unhinged shit.
The Star Wars
Okay.
Christmas special. Literally, that's
It's
what it
this-
is. It's just yeah.
Okay.
Oh
And I
god.
think there's more than one because I do vaguely recall one more recently that has like BB-8 in it. So like, we're talking about
Maybe
the
they
original
made-
one. So like,
Maybe they made a new one.
I think they
That's-
did. It was not any better. It was not better. I made it even less into that one than I.
Wow, that's impressive because the old one was really bad.
I think it was like BB-8, and I want to say I could be wrong about this, but I want to say it was Josh Gad.
Oh wow.
I think, but I could be completely wrong about that. It might have been somebody else, but yeah.
Newly Human says everyone should watch the Star Wars the Christmas special once, and then a period, and then once with another period. And I would like to emphasize that punctuation because that's how I feel about it. If we do, Hermes suggested we need a Rule of Lore Star Wars Christmas special watch along. If we do that, we have to have Ray Billings.
Yes.
It is.
See, okay, that would convince me to do it. That was because originally my response to Newly Human was no thanks. I love myself. But no, I would do that. I would watch it with Ray.
Ray, It is for some reason one of Ray's pieces of like comfort media to watch with friends, to be like, how much do you like me that you will sit through this terrible, weirdly formative piece of media for me? And I have watched the Star Wars Christmas special with Ray, and that is, I think, the only way that I made it through the whole thing. I would have tapped out probably at the VR Wookiee scene. I will say no more than that.
I think I know what you're talking about, because I do think I've had it like explained to me before, but like
so much.
Oh, I'm looking forward to this.
It's also like, so no, Freeman, not only is it like just really just very much taking Star Wars and like making it like a Christmas special for children, but it's also exceptionally low budget. So like
I kind of imagined.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think most of the people who were probably involved on that were on too much cocaine to remember anything that happened that weekend. So,
the first canonical appearance of Boba Fett, though, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think it might have been.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, it's
canonical, canon adjacent.
It's a. I think the best way that I can describe it, not pithily, is that like the old like Christmas show, like variety shows and things that were popular in like the 60s, 70s.
Yeah.
They tried to basically do that with Star Wars, where they had like, there was an animated portion and you had like all of these separate little stories, and they would cut between them. Like you could almost imagine the curtains closing and then reopening, and now it's a new scene. And so there's all of these characters, and it's supposed to be like a heartwarming Christmas story and stuff. It doesn't really land because it was very low budget.
Yeah, very low budget, and ends up being unintentionally horrifying.
Yes, it is unintentionally horrifying. The actors' makeup is like really bad, just to the point where they look like super strung out. And they're, most of the movie by volume is unintelligible Wookiee screeching with no captions.
Oh, no captions. Excellent. Oh.
So much of that movie is unintelligible Wookiee screeching with no captions, because it's following like Chewbacca's family. Harry says, you had me at coked out Mark Hamill, and
yeah,
his makeup is so bad. That's why he looks that way. Yes, you need them. It has to be a fundraiser. The more people fund, the longer the channel watches. Every dollar we raise is another minute of the Christmas special watched.
Jesus. That seems like a pretty low fundraiser, though.
Yeah, I feel like every $10 we watch another minute.
Oh my god.
But also the coke. Anyway, all of this to say, Star Wars is a big property, and there is already a piece of media in it that is largely by volume Wookiee screeching without captions. So if you want to do that to yourself, you can. I will say only of the Christmas special for myself, there was the Jonathan who sat down that night, that fateful night, to watch the Star Wars Christmas special, and there's the Jonathan that sits before you now, and they are different people. I am changed.
There's the John that walked in that night, and then there was the one who emerged. Oh my god.
Anyway, Star Wars Christmas special.
No, I'm actually very excited for the Acolyte, Matt. For Star Wars Acolyte. But I will admit, I know very little, if nothing, about it, mainly because everything I've ever heard about it contradicts the last thing I heard about it. So I actually don't know anything about the Acolyte. But you seem to know more, like some definitive things that I don't know. So share them if you like. I truly don't know. Because the last thing that I remember hearing about it was that it was going to be like a show that sort of followed a Sith character, like as like a main character, but I feel like that's incorrect.
But that would be cool.
I would watch the fuck out of that. If they did that, I'm telling you right now, if they did that, without watching it, I can tell you that would be my favorite Star Wars thing of all time.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I'm not one of the people who I'm not. I just to be clear, I'm not one of those people who just likes the Sith because they're edgy and evil and it's cool to like the bad guy. No, I just think they're genuinely fascinating. Like, they're genuinely fascinating characters, and I really want like a deeper exploration of them as the protagonist. I would love to see that.
Yeah.
I
I was gonna say, like, if I'm not mistaken, their mantra isn't necessarily like evil.
Yeah, yeah,
It's just
absolutely.
that they just have evil in charge, you know?
Yeah.
Is that not wrong
No,
though?
no,
Like,
you're right, and there are, like, does it lead to a little bit of? I mean, you can interpret the things that they say to lead to all kinds of nasty, disgusting things like eugenics, but it can
yeah.
be interpreted that way, and that's where a lot of like the worst Sith come from. But like, with their interpretations of that. But I think it would be genuinely fascinating to have like a series that like followed like even just like a group of Sith that followed the Sith code but interpreted it differently. And I think that would be
Mm-hmm.
fascinating because the old expanded universe did something kind of similar to that, and genuinely those were some of my favorite Star Wars stories within the expanded universe. So oh, Amity, have a good night. Thanks for stopping by and hanging out with us.
Good
Right.
night.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. It'd also be really fun to see some stuff from the Old Republic, I think.
yeah. So, Geekout says, what I heard was set during the High Republic, the Jedi are their most powerful and influential. They also have not been Sith in thousands of years. I think the Sith slash
Mm.
dark side users are going to be sympathetic or anti-hero types. They were described as the underdogs. Huh. Okay. Sure.
Hmm.
I I I'm I don't I can't make that make sense in my brain, but like it sounds cool and I'm very excited to watch it.
Hermes is like, you could say that Han Solo follows the Sith code to a point. Most anti-heroes work that way.
I don't know if I would define Han Solo as an anti-hero. I'm sorry. That's not what we're here to talk. We're not here to quibble about these things. But I that's you think you're probably right. I just want more Night Sisters content. There it is. Thank you, Hermes. That's what I want. I agree with you. I want more Night Sister content.
Mm-hmm.
Those are some of the best episodes of Clone Wars.
Cool.
Like all the Night Sister episodes.
Yeah.
That was like peak Clone Wars. Those were great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, they created like they brought back Darth Maul's brother, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Am I thinking? Yeah, yeah.
The
Okay.
the very they sure gave him a name.
I forgot that. I forgot the name.
Savage Opress. Like,
Yeah.
okay, come on.
Okay, doke.
Come on.
All right.
I understand
Alright.
there are lots of very dumb names in Star Wars, but did we have to go that far? Did we?
Do we
That one
need to
needed another
double
couple
down?
rounds in the writer's room.
Yeah.
Like,
That that needed to pass through a few more a few more eyes needed to pass over that one. Like that's not on the nose, that's like fully through the skull. Like that has been
Yeah.
like that's not
yeah.
They needed
Yeah.
to double and triple down on their name convention, I guess.
Look, a
Did
lot of
you
people
name this?
it's like look, a lot of people think that Star Wars names are dumb. So we need to disprove that. How do we do that? What if we make a really, really dumb one to say like, no, this is what dumb names look like?
Take that. How do you like that, audience? Yikes.
Really, we have to double down on it to show them how stupid it could be by comparison.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not a captain. That's a major general, obvious.
Nice.
Oh gosh. I'm trying to think of like I know there's like I have a lot of Star Wars things to say at any given time, but right now I'm struggling to think of like some interesting stuff.
Yeah, we've been talking about like genre stuff, which I think is which I think is interesting. Like I do think the breadth of genres that has been again that has existed in Star Wars is really cool,
Yeah.
right? Um, and like there's because I'm just like ticking off here. We have like the kind of its particular version of like space fantasy that it is in like the original mainline films, and then especially like in some of the Book of Boba Fett and the Mandalorian, there's been like this kind of like dip into like cyberpunky like body modification and stuff, and like retrofuturism, which I think has always been a
Oh yeah.
hallmark
Absolutely.
of
I think
Star Wars.
the Book of Boba Fett had the closest on-screen representation of Ralph McQuarrie concept art to date in Star Wars.
Yeah. Yeah, for real. There were like just some old like some of their like speeders and stuff, like their little speeder
Yep.
bikes and scooters and things like that. And I was just like, this looks like it was in a magazine in 1970.
Yeah.
Uh, this
Cool.
this is straight out of an episode of the Jetsons.
Nico, I'm not sure what you mean. Thoughts on the Outer Rim, like just as a concept, or like, what do you mean? Edge of It said, but also leaning really heavily into Western and samurai movies. I agree. My hot take, and you are free to disagree with this because I will, as a disclaimer for my hot take, um, and I think this might lead into Nico's question, which he just explained. Um, my hot take comes from largely a place of ignorance about at least one of the genres that I'm gonna talk about in it. My hot take is that The Mandalorian is more of a Western than Firefly is. It's more of a space Western than Firefly.
I think
Because, like, Firefly, I did just recently watch through all of Firefly, and what struck me is while it looks very much like a Western, the stories and tropes in Firefly are sci-fi stories and tropes, with the exception of, like, one or two episodes.
You're right. There were a couple of episodes that had more of a Western like
Yes.
aesthetic and storytelling,
Yeah.
but for the most part, it's mostly just the aesthetic.
Like, the one where,
with, like,
I think it's called not Bushwhacked, Kidnapped? The one where, like, Simon and River get taken by, like, the people, like, who live in the hills, and then the River gets accused of being a witch. Very Western episode. Also the one later in the season where there's, like, the whorehouse basically on the frontier, and they're trying to, like, have their independence or whatever. Like, fully that is a Western, because they, like, have a shootout and a big standoff against, like, the big, like, Baron and his goons, and, like, that's very Western. Like, everything about that
there are saloon doors in that brothel, I think.
Yes, absolutely.
And Nico summed it up very well. Firefly is shot like a Western. The Mandalorian tells its story like a Western.
That's, I think, what I would say.
Yeah.
And then the reason I say this goes well into Nico's question about what I think about my thoughts on the Outer Rim as a place to tell stories in. I'm for it. I don't remember if I said this on. I don't think I said this on stream. I think I was just talking about this to somebody, one of you two, recently, where I was saying that I really, really want, and it's what I thought the Mandalorian was going to be. Like, in season 1, you see him, like, bouncing around and, like, meeting all these different people, and they, like, help him out, and I was like, oh man, he's putting together a team. And he kind of does that at the end of that season, but then they just but I was really hoping for, and I would still love to see, a, like, Firefly as like the concept of that show in the Star Wars universe. I would love to see it. And what I mean by that is not necessarily like they're like the story beat for beat and like the overall premise, but the idea of like a crew of like random misfits living on a ship, just trying to make a living in their day to day, and growing closer as a crew and as a family and dealing with all these things. Like, I would love to see that. And I don't think currently there's any better place to tell that story than in Star Wars. And to your question, Nico, the best possible place to tell that story is in the Outer Rim. Like,
Yeah, I think if you want like political thriller, like cyberpunk kind of like the more sci-fi-y side of Star Wars, you're on Coruscant.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want
Yeah.
like that more like retro futuristic kind of less centralized
Yeah.
storytelling, the Outer Rim is the place to be in the Star Wars
Yeah.
universe. There's
And
just so much that is out there and can be out there. Um,
mm-hmm. And I want to
also,
I want oh, sorry, what were you going to say?
I was just acknowledging what Edgef had said. Like,
That's
yeah,
what I
the
was going to say
westerns are
too.
pretty much Asian martial arts movies with
Yeah.
guns,
Yeah.
same themes, similar
Absolutely.
honor systems, just gentrified for white audiences.
Exactly. And that's very true. And like that's what I mean when I say like the tropes of like the western are more present in The Mandalorian than they are in Firefly, because
Mm.
Firefly is in no way inspired by like samurai films and martial arts films and things like that. They are, I mean, the aesthetic is that of the American West, but like that that does not a western make. And I guess they
Yeah.
ride horses in some episodes, and there's cows in another episode. That doesn't make it a western. That doesn't make it a space western. It's yeah,
Yeah. Love to see a heist story
Mm.
set in the Outer Rim with a lone Sith outcast as supporting cast and not a main character.
Asajj Ventress live action film when? Okay, anyway, that's a
Ooh,
Yeah,
wow.
that would be
Ooh,
good.
I am
That would
interested
be.
in that.
yeah. She's genuinely, other than Ahsoka, I think she might be my favorite character from Clone Wars. Truly, like I love Asajj Ventress and like her whole arc in Clone Wars, just incredible. From Jedi turned Sith turned bounty hunter turned Jedi again. Just fucking incredible character.
Hmm.
What a ride!
Hmm.
It will happen, Lucas, because of Dave Filoni. No, I believe it. I believe it. I'm,
Oh.
yeah,
Hmm.
I absolutely believe
Let's,
that.
let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
There's some other characters from the Clone Wars too that I really appreciated, and I can't think of their names right now, but there were plenty. I think. Like,
Many of them were clones.
yeah, you know what? A lot of them were. A lot of them
I
were
would love to
clones. I was
see.
like,
I don't know
I
how.
would
I
love to
don't know
see that.
how like committed to being in Star Wars Tamora Morrison is, but I would love to see Rex in live action.
Yeah.
Like
True.
Yeah.
like he came back for the Book of Boba Fett, but like I don't know if he's like committed to, you know, coming back to reprise various roles on Star Wars properties. But I just love that character so much. Captain Rex is just like I love him.
Yeah. Yeah. The I will say the clones are one of my favorite parts about. I mean, the show is called The Clone Wars. They should be,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah,
But like they did a very good job of making me care a lot about those characters that are supposed to be that apparently nobody else in universe except for maybe some of the Jedi that work with them
yeah.
like seem to care about them.
Matt, I actually forgot about the Clone Trooper veteran in Kenobi, but you're right. That was a really nice touch. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that was a nice touch. But no, you're right, John. Like, because like off the top of my head, I'm like, oh man, like my heart is still broken over heavy, over hard case fives, Jesse,
Mm.
Tup. Like, my heart is broken over all those. And though they're clones, and they did such a good job in that show of making them into individuals. Waxer. Waxer.
Waxer.
Waxer is one of the two clones who, like, Waxer and Boyle, like, kind of adopted a little Twilight girl during the campaign on
I was
Ryloth.
just thinking about that episode
And I
where
remember
like
watching the episode where Waxer dies, and I'm like, oh, it's like a very, like, they don't linger on it. It just, boom, it happens, and it's just like, oh, no, my heart.
yeah. Well, like I don't know, just the palpable dad energy that
Mm-hmm.
they just exuded the moment that there's this tiny Twilight girl.
Yeah.
They're like, ah, shit. I guess we're dads now.
Yeah. No, you know what? Cole pointed out something to me the other day, like when we were watching
Mhm.
some of these episodes. Later on, when we see Waxer, Waxer actually has a little Twilight girl on his helmet.
Yep.
And it makes me so sad. like Cole pointed this out, and I'm like, why would you point that out to me?
Oh no!
Why would you break my heart again?
Oh,
No, but I had like never noticed it, but Cole saw it, and I was like, oh.
God, that would hurt me too.
Um.
Oh no.
Oh my god, Nico. That's an incredible pitch. I love that.
I would also love a comedy set during the Clone Wars of a guy that happens to look exactly like Jango Fett and gets thrown into the ranks.
Yeah. Okay. I like this. I like that too.
Laugh track and all.
Yeah.
Like, go whole hog into
No,
comedy.
you lost me on the laugh track. You lost me.
You know, the laugh track is yeah.
Yeah, you lost
It's
me.
like I hear that.
It's like,
fair enough.
what are you doing, soldier? You deserting? Like, no, I'm just a guy. I'm not a clone. I just happen to look like like a likely story. Now get back to your post before you're court-martialed. Like,
I'm not in the military.
Cut to scene in clone armor, just like. Go full Blade Runner and give him a voiceover. Oh my god.
God.
Yeah.
No. That I suppose that is one angle that we haven't really seen explored in Star Wars is like I suppose comedy and horror are angles that we haven't really seen around very much.
I think Star Wars horror would be excellent, especially because you could do some weird like cosmic horror and with the Force and like stuff like that, like was done in the old expanded universe, which like was one of my favorite story arcs. Doing comedy in Star Wars, I think it depends on how it's done. Like if it's a true comedy, like leaning into being a comedy, I might be interested. Like if they do like Lower Decks but with Star Wars, I think I could maybe be okay with that. What I don't want to see, what I truly don't want to see is Star Wars does Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
Yeah.
Where like nobody's allowed to have any kind of like where it's like it's not like leaning hard into being a comedy. It's just like oh yeah, it's action, but it's also funny. And nobody's allowed to have a serious moment without it being undercut by a punchline every 45 seconds. Yeah. And like I just like not Jar Jar Binks Adventure. Is it horror? Is it comedy? Who's to say?
Oh no.
The answer changes by the minute.
The answer
Misa's not going to answer that.
Chance, the answer to that is yes.
Yes. I think the horror I think from that situation is not knowing what Jar Jar will do next or what the consequences of his actions will be. Long live Darth Jar Jar. The one who has been behind the scenes manipulating things since the beginning.
Like that was a funny like meme post or whatever. But the thing that always got to me was the people who like were genuinely convinced that that's what was going to happen in the new Star Wars trilogy.
Jar Jar Binks was going to
wind up being. In what world? In what world?
No, not happening. Sorry.
This guy was the comedy relief character, and that was his role.
Yeah.
Yep. Although they have C-3PO and R2 for that, so I mean that's always been my like comedy relief for those movies.
Yes, C-3PO and R2-D2, the Rosencrantz and Guildenstern of Star Wars.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's true.
The comedy of errors, as it were. Also, if I'm.
Yep.
There's definitely a lot that can be like said about the Force being used as a tool, like Force ghosts and like all this stuff about the Force as a tool for horror. I can say that when I was a young lad and I watched The Empire Strikes Back, and Luke is on Swamp Planet.
Dagobah.
Dagobah.
How dare you not remember that? No.
And is going on his little spirit quest. I was spooked by that. So if they could amp that up a little bit and then move I think that there would be lots of horror-ish aspects for that for sure.
Gemini, thank you so much. Gemini, I appreciate you a lot, and thank you for coming and supporting. We will hopefully have news soon TM about things. So,
Mm-hmm.
but suffice it to say, we are working on stuff. So,
Oh yeah.
working on
There
things.
are ongoing conversations behind the scenes as we've
Yeah.
been doing like some of the other stuff we've been doing about the
Yeah.
more stuff. So
Sitting here trying to think of a horror pitch, and I unfortunately just don't know the lore well enough. But Freeman's right. The Force as an element of horror is too good. It is, especially like the way that they did it in the they did like cosmic horror in the old expanded universe. With there's some episodes actually that make reference to it in Clone Wars. And that's the episode on, I believe the planet is called Mortis.
Sounds familiar, yeah.
Where they have like these characters called the father, the daughter, and the son. And in the books, these are like powerful force beings who embody specific aspects of the force. The daughter embodying the light side of the force, the son embodying the dark side, and the father like keeping the balance and the peace between the siblings. But there was in the books of the expanded universe a fourth being who was known as the mother, and she, unlike the others, was not a an immortal force being. She was a regular human until she like there are two fountains of like force energy, and like one was like knowledge and the other one is power, and she drank from one and bathed in the other, which you're like not supposed to do both, and it transformed her into like a like basically a cosmic horror, like an eldritch horror of the force. And
oh wow.
yeah, like heavily a lot of actually the imagery used to describe that character in those books heavily inspired the kind of the beings in Infinite Horizon, like this sort of like entity and figment and like those be heavily inspired those, because I just loved those so much. But yeah, Star Wars can do cosmic horror. It's been done before. I would just love to see it on the screen, frankly. So
me too.
Yeah.
Always a bigger fish, indeed.
Underwater giant fish seeming thing. Yeah, there's a lot of terrifying shit that they always like just kind of like graze up against the edges of, because that's like not the genre of most of these films.
You could so
and,
easily
like,
do creature horror too, you know? And
Mhm.
some of what we've seen in Star Wars recently has like brushed right up against that too. Like doing like creature horror, like doing Star Wars does Alien, you know? It's brushed right up against that, especially in the Bad Batch season 2. I don't know if y'all have seen it, but like you should.
Yet, no.
It's very good.
Yeah.
Season 1 was great. Season 2 takes season 1 and just kicks it over the fence. Like it's incredible. Truly,
That's good.
It's so good. But yeah, the Bad Batch in particular has definitely done some of that a little bit. Oh, interesting. Hold on. Sorry, I missed this. Somebody mentioned something about Star Wars does good spooky horror moments. The garbage compactor monster. Yeah. Somebody mentioned something about Death Troopers. Sorry, I lost it in the thread. What are we talking about? Death Troopers. Because I feel like this is something that I don't actually know about. Death Troopers book. Got it. Hermes, thank you. The Death Troopers. There was Death Troopers book, which was very cosmic horror. I don't know if I know that one.
Yeah, same.
Chan says I did not like it was like Solo, but the Kessel run through the storm clouds with the Imperial Star Destroyer coming through. That scene could so easily flip to something horror. Yeah, that's pretty sick. Yeah, I would love that. Death Troopers was a book, really good, totally worth grabbing from the library. I'm interested. I'm gonna like check that out.
Odd says, "Hey, here to lurk. Just wanted to say I started watching Andor because of you. Okay, bye."
I'm so glad to hear that. I hope you like it.
If the only thing that comes of the last couple of weeks of Ramblemancy is that if you more people watch Andor, worth it.
Yeah, Matt Key voice. Watch Andor.
Watch Alpha. Yeah.
Came out in 2009. Okay, I genuinely have not heard of this, but now I might go looking for it because that sounds right up my alley. Um, I don't know if any of you were aware, but I really, really like cosmic horror. I don't know if that was like something that you guys knew about, but I've never really tipped my hand on that, and I've never mentioned it before or.
Thank you for just now sharing this with all of us, Lucas. I'm sure this is a big shock to everyone
It's
here.
a big moment for me, so I.
I feel betrayed that you didn't tell me.
All these years of friendship.
I know. Oh. No, Edge of It. Yes.
What's the name of? Oh yeah, sorry. No.
Get some
sleep
sleep.
well.
Edge of It.
You gotta get it where you can.
Yeah. Thanks for coming and hanging out with us.
Well, what's the name of the beast on Hoth again? That
the Wampa.
The Wampa. Yeah, there's something there too. I think. Just like.
Oh man! Imagine like
the environment too is pretty horrifying.
Yeah,
as
imagine
well.
a movie where like a merchant like a merchant ship or something like crash lands on Hoth or a similar planet, and then they like realize that like there's a Wampa that has like caught their scent, and they have to like survive and like keep ahead of it. I realize I'm just describing Predator, but in Star Wars and in the ice instead of the jungle, but that would be cool. Kind of.
It would actually be. I think so. Yeah. I like it. Yeah. Ooh. All right, come on. Let's do it. Do it.
Star Wars The Thing. Yeah. There you
Basically, go. That's kind of what I was thinking too. I just couldn't
That's
think
also
of
very cool, yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, Hermes, I was just gonna say like Pitch Black. Yeah, exactly.
Ooh.
Pitch Black, but in Star Wars.
Wow.
Yeah. There are actually creatures in. I don't know if they're canon still. I sort of don't think they are, but on the planet of, I think it was Merkur. In the old canon, I think this was actually in the Thrawn trilogy. I think they're called Vornskers that hunt using the Force. They're like these like terrifying like reptilian canine creatures that hunt using the Force. And they hunt Force users basically because they're like attracted to them, and like Sith used them to like hunt down Jedi and stuff like that. Yeah. And their prey were the Isalamiri, which were these little lizards that created an anti-force bubble around them.
Huh, okay. Cool.
That's so fucking cool.
Yeah. I feel like Mustafar is already like a horror planet all by itself.
It kind of is. Especially, I just learned this about Mustafar. Apparently it's not all the way that we've seen it. And like there's also like petrified forests and shit on the planet.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically if Mordor was a planet. Sorry to bring it back to Lord of the Rings, but Ramblemancy. It's like if Mordor was a planet. There's even like a tall spiring tower where a lich kind of lives.
Did you just describe Darth Vader as a lich?
A little bit, kind of.
That's great.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
He's not a lich.
Yeah, like I said it and then I was trying to make it make sense.
Yeah. Geek Outs, that is in fact the best line in that movie. In Pitch Black.
You said clear.
I said it looks clear. How's it look now? Looks clear.
Looks clear. Man, that is the line that Lucas and I would say to each other a lot after we watched those movies. A lot. It is easily one of the best.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, all it takes for it to be canon is a writer brave enough to bring it back. Dave Filoni.
Do it.
Do it.
Give it to us. Darth Vader suiting up in Kenobi was intense. Yeah. You just sort of knew that shit was about to get very, very, very real.
Indeed.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Oh man, I'm gonna have to watch that again. I'll have
Me
to watch
too.
that.
I was just thinking that because there's a lot of stuff that's been mentioned here that I just like fully did not remember from that show, and I would also love to watch it like all the way through, like kind of like what I'm doing with The Mandalorian, because I think I watched every single episode of The Mandalorian weekly, and now I'm rewatching it with Cole and watching it all the way through, and it's a very different show. And I find that that's actually very true. Like we're sort of at the end of our time here, but I think it's important to say like I find that is very true. That my impressions and opinions about a show change wildly from when I'm watching it week to week versus when I'm binging the whole thing. Because if I'm able to just sort of binge the whole thing, then I find that I am less annoyed at my time being not time being wasted, but like less annoyed when there's not immediate payoff for certain things and that like they delay and whatever, because I often feel like, especially in The Mandalorian and some of the like in like season 2 particularly was guilty of this, where we knew what was coming, but it just felt like the show was jerking us around before we got there. You know, and watching that weekly is maddening.
Yeah.
But like, so I find that my opinion about a show or certain episodes, and this is why my argument about Andor earlier, I think my opinion changes drastically based on whether I am watching it week to week or binging the whole thing all the way through. So
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. We are.
So we'll be talking more about Star Wars in May, right?
Man, I think so. We didn't even scratch the surface of this.
It's a vast universe.
There's so much. We'll have to have a guest on and talk about Star Wars.
I agree. That would be so fun.
Ooh, good idea.
The best way to keep a topic fresh so that it's not just the three of us rehashing the same points over and over again is to get different people on to talk about things and bring their different perspectives, because as it turns out, that makes for better discussions.
Yeah, truly.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for coming and hanging out with us tonight and talking Star Wars. I know it's a little bit on everybody's brain these days, and I'm very glad that you came and talked about it with us. It is one of my favorite pieces of media, period, but also one of my favorite pieces of media to like talk about. So, yeah. Just some reminders about just sort of general stuff. If you're not already in our Discord, you should be. That's the place where you will always get like Discord always gets notified about news and announcements first, before anywhere else. So that's the place to be. Also, if you have more things to say about our Ramblemancy topics, there's places in there to discuss them. You can drop links to videos and things like that we wouldn't have time or the ability to watch here on stream. And I always love whenever people post videos relevant to like the stuff that we were talking about, because it just like always adds a whole other dynamic to the conversation for me. So I appreciate that. If you want to support us, obviously you can subscribe to us here on Twitch, but the best way to do so is definitely on Patreon. And yeah, Patreon is really the place where we are able to have most of our budget for producing stuff. That's where most of it has come from, and it's very, very helpful, and we are in the process currently of using like our support from Patreon to produce things. That's it. That's all I have to say about that.
True. The Patreon has a media club that we have at the end of the month, and somewhere in the middle of the month has a tabletop tool chest where we do little tidbits of world building that you can kind of put into your worlds or stories thereof. And if you're subscribed to that, or actually if you're on the Discord, if you join Discord and you're at the first tier, I believe you get a backlog of all of our media.
Yeah, if you subscribe here on Twitch and you're in our Discord,
Twitch,
you get a backlog of our like Patreon content from the first couple of tiers as well as going forward. So very, very good thing to be in on.
And if you're watching this on YouTube, leave a like, subscribe, hit the bell so you know when we're rambling or doing other things, and leave a comment, and keep the conversation going. And what did I want to say? And help defeat the Galactic Empire. I mean the algorithms. That's what I meant. It's very helpful.
I mean, it's not
we
not
appreciate
that.
everyone. It's not that. It's true.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week. Next week we have a very special guest. We have the one and only Megan Murphy, designer of this overlay and the Ramblemancy logo and the Rule of Lore logo, coming on to chat about TTRPGs, design, and all kinds of cool stuff. So, yeah, I'm very excited to have Megan on. I've been wanting to have her on for such a long time, and now we finally get to do it. So, yeah, come join us. We're going to talk all kinds of good stuff, and I'm very excited for this one. So, we will hopefully see you then for that, but if not, we'll see you the next time you decide to come roll with us. Good night, and good zone, everybody.